Hello everyone and welcome back to One Autistic Person. This is the 8th video in my 50 video series looking at the questions from the Autism Quotient, the Autism Quotient questionnaire that's used as a pre-screening tool as part of the autism diagnosis process. It looks at things as a deficit. And what I want to do with these videos is sort of open up a conversation around looking at those things that are perceived as deficit as part of the autism diagnosis process as benefits, as positives, as if we can find either positives for it, or if we can look at how to mitigate something if there isn't really a way of looking at it as a benefit. So like I say, this is the 8th video, which means it's the 8th question on the Autism Quotient. I did a much longer video that did all of the questions and did the actual questionnaire. And as I was doing that, I realised I'd love to delve a little bit more into the questions and what they mean. And like I say, looking at them from a positive rather than a deficit. So this is the 8th question, which is, when I'm reading a story, I can easily imagine what the characters might look like. For me, this is a definitely disagree. I can't visualise in my head something that's written down. I struggle when somebody's talking to me with it. I can probably ask for more information, but it's still not visual to me. I really struggle with this. And when I've had conversations with people who do see things visually, so I've had, which that has been both with neurotypical people, but also neurodivergent people who do see things visually as well. Because I think this is probably a bit of an old-fashioned misconception that we have no imagination, that autistic people have no imagination. I do have an imagination. I just see things differently. Now, I would see a character as sort of a list of personality traits, as a list of their what they look like. So if it's like they've said that they have long blonde hair, I will be able to remember that they have long blonde hair, but I won't see it. I don't build a picture. I can't put a picture together. I think I would be absolutely terrible if somebody asked me to give them information to be able to do a photo fit or something like that, because I could give you really basic information about something, but I can't give you that full explanation of what something looks like. And that kind of works on a two-way thing with this to an extent, because I think I struggle to explain something visually as well. I can explain it functionally, but I can't explain it visually, apart from brown hair. But if somebody said, like when somebody says long, mid, length, I can't work out what that means. I struggle with understanding what that would look like. So I think this is part of a bigger thing for me. It's not just not being able to visualize characters, although that is really difficult for me. I really struggle being able to visualize anything. So it's it's quite an interesting one. But like I say, it's kind of like there's a profile written for the person. That I'm seeing it quite methodically, that if somebody was to describe somebody to me, if you were to have I don't know why you would have it on a HR file, maybe a police record that would have a description of that person. That's kind of how I see people that are in stories. So hair colour, eye colour, personality traits. But if people have described other things about them, I just can't place it. I can't place where things are. I can't really visualize things that even if they are described if that character is described in really a lot of detail, I won't be able to build that character up in my head. And I found this when, like I say, on the reverse, when I've been creating AI images for stories that I've created. I have been able to write the story and give those bits of information, because for all intents and purposes I've created a profile for them. But trying to reverse that and then put it into a description so that AI can understand it, which needs to be very neurotypical way of talking, because AI works very much on the majority of information it's getting, which is going to be coming from a neurotypical thought process. I really struggle to get it to do what I want it to do, whereas other people seem to be able to put words in quite easily to be able to describe that thing, whereas I feel like I'm probably maybe over describing. I don't really know what I'm doing wrong with it, but it's never exactly what I want it to be. So I think that I personally struggle with visualization, but also vocalization of something that's descriptive. I really struggle, other than really basic things of it's red, it's round, and it's a vegetable. Well, actually, it's a fruit. I'm thinking about a tomato. That's as basic as it is. I wouldn't talk about more complex things when it comes to that. It wouldn't be. I wouldn't talk about. I wouldn't think about the interior of it or something like that. You know, do you know what I mean? There'd be not. That was a really bad example, but I do think that I struggle to describe other people. I actually struggle to understand the difference between hair colour. So I struggle to understand the difference between. So sometimes people call people blonde, and I'm like, that doesn't look blonde. It's brown to me. But I struggle with interpretation of colour. I'm not colourblind, but I can sometimes really struggle with the interpretation of colour. A lot of the time, I'm saying that it's a different colour. So if it's on a scale of something's green, it's very green. Obviously that's green. But if something's bluey green, I often pick the blue side rather than the green side, or the green side rather than the blue side, and the other person seems to be choosing the opposite to it. So I obviously interpret colour in maybe an atypical way. So yeah, that's quite. This is quite a deep one for me from an imagination perspective, because of the description side of it and also the actual visualization of it, which has been difficult when I've been writing fiction, because I am writing so methodically about things. And I've been talking to, because I'm doing a joint project at the moment on a piece of fiction with my best friend, and we both think quite logically, but differently in that logic. So I look more to world building and the environment, whereas my best friend looks way more at describing the people and what they do. So this is why we're working on the project together, because we're both good at doing those two separate things. So putting this story together hopefully, it'll take us forever to do. It'll be an absolute nightmare, the amount of time it's going to take, but we'll get there eventually, because when we're both got executive functioning issues and I have to cancel meeting after meeting because we can't talk about it, but I can really sometimes struggle to see what he's trying to describe to me, even though he has given me a really, really detailed view of things. I really, really struggle to build that character in my head. So yeah, that's really an important thing if you are writing fiction, to be able to do that. But this is why we're doing the two things separately, so he can build that, we can talk it through and have a really good talk about it. So from a positive perspective on this, again, there's not a huge amount of positive to it, because it's not great, but what I would say is that it does allow us to break down information about people more, that we maybe look at different things rather than looking at how the character may look, but we might look at more of the intention of the character. Although I struggle to understand the intention of a character, but we may look more at the storyline and the overarching plot line, or look at other details within the story, and it may make us look at things differently to maybe other people do. But it isn't the hugest, most positive, and also doesn't really have the biggest amount of mitigation. And I don't really see that there is any mitigation apart from, like what I'm doing with my friend, is that if you are needing to build characters, that maybe you work with somebody else to be able to do that and talk that through. And maybe it's worth going to a book club and maybe having conversations that will be that are talking more about this. I mean, I know my friend does that. My friend goes to a book club and discusses things, and I know he gets a lot of insight that maybe he wouldn't have got had he not gone to the book club. So it makes him see things in maybe a different light. And I know he likes talking through things with me quite often about things, so that we can have, because if I have an opposing opinion, we'll talk about it. So yeah, maybe that's the thing, is that it's a matter of opening up conversation with people and asking people what they thought. So yeah, I suppose that's the good thing, is that maybe you'll be able to learn new things from other people rather than just being isolated into reading that book and then not discussing it. So if you find a way to discuss it, maybe that's the positive. But this one has been a bit of a weird one because there's not a huge amount of positive to not being able to visualize a character when you're reading a book. So anyway, thank you for watching this video. I hope that you've enjoyed it. I'd love it if you could like, comment, subscribe, share. As I've said with all of these videos, the commenting is the most important bit because I'd really like to build up a community over time with this, and that would be fantastic if people could talk about what their sort of contextual expectations are of these questions, and what they feel about them, and how we can see these as more positive, especially when I've not really been able to come up with one in this video. So let's see whether I'm really like to see whether other people can come up with something. Thank you very much, and I will see you in the next one, hopefully. Thanks. Bye.